In today's show, it's a crossover edition of the program with Alex Wolfe of Locked On Knicks. We talk about Malcolm Brogdon trades, the potential of him heading to New York, and what the Blazers might want in return. Also, we recorded this before the Pascal Siakam trade, so we spent about 90 seconds talking about a future Pascal Siakam trade. That's already happened, but it's still a great episode. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is crossover time. Locked On Knicks and Locked On Blazers. And you know what time it is? It's trade season. This is why we got to do this. We got to, talk out some mock trades, because when else are we going to get to do this? Well, maybe in the off season, but like right now we've got like a month, if that, to get this done and have some fun and do some mock trades. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts of the podcast. Of course, I'm Alex Wolfe. He's Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers, me of Locked On Knicks. And Mike, I think there's one name that really jumps out here that we need to talk about first and foremost.
Evan
that's Malcolm
Fournier.
Brogdon.
Oh, okay.
Evan Fournier. Oh, yeah. Evan Fournier, of course. The shooting threat that the Blazers need right now to save their season.
He's fresh. I'll tell you that. He's fresh.
He's certainly fresh. He's got very low mileage this year. Can I interest you in a low mileage Evan Fournier in exchange for Malcolm Brogdon? But Brogdon, just for a quick statistical primer, is averaging about 15 points, 5 assists, 3 boards this year, shooting 43% from the field, 41% from 3 on pretty decent volume, which is a staple for him in his career at this point, 77.5% from the free throw line. So I guess, Mike, my first thing would just be, what are your thoughts about the Knicks as trade partners here? Because like what's the market shaping out for as far as Brogdon? Like, as we're recording this, it seems like Siakam is probably going to get traded in the next 24 to 48 hours. Things are starting to open up a little bit because the Knicks obviously made the trade for OG, which sort of was like the first foray of trade season. And the Knicks obviously are still going to want to do business, but I would imagine that Portland's probably getting at least rumored a lot of interest for Brogdon right now, right?
Yeah, thanks to the magic of the play-in tournament, there are more teams that buy into the nonsense, right? There's more teams that say we believe, and then you see the Lakers make the a couple play-in teams, the Lakers and the Heat make deep playoff runs, and it's like there's reason to believe if we're a veteran team we can get right, and if we finish somewhere in the top 10, well, anything can happen. So you just have more teams that are in the mix. And while there are some truly terrible teams in the league, including the one that I cover every day on my podcast, the Portland Trailblazers, God bless them, there aren't a ton of sellers, right? It seems like you said, Pascal Siakam's a seller, or the Raptors with Siakam are sellers. It seems like DeJounte Murray in Atlanta, the Hawks are going to be sellers. What do the Wizards have to sell? What do the Pistons have to sell? What do the Spurs have to sell? Right? They don't have Doug McDermott, I guess. But it's and Bogdanovich, but are they going to trade Kyle Kuzma? But it's a pretty thin line. So the Blazers are one of the few teams that are going to be sellers. And so I think they are truly motivated to move off Brogdon. I have been saying on my show that they have to trade Malcolm Brogdon. Does the front office feel as strongly as I do? I don't know. But from my perspective, have to. It is imperative that Malcolm Brogdon is no longer on the roster after the trade deadline. And that's not because he's not a nice fellow. And it's not because he's not a good basketball player. It's precisely because he is good at basketball that he has to go play for another team. The Blazers have young guards. They got young guards galore. If there's one thing that they have, it's youth that needs to dribble. Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, who's going to be out for a couple weeks because he's hurt, but he's going to come back and he's better with the ball in his hands. They got to just have a way for all those dudes to play 35 minutes and particularly all those dudes to play at the end of the game. And the way to do that is to trade Malcolm Brogdon. And I think he'll have suitors. Why does he appeal to the Knicks?
So really they have a rather large Emmanuel Quickley sized hole in the bench unit now. Since there's no denying the OG trade has made the Knicks a better team. I think that's undeniable. And if they're at full strength, everybody's healthy, whatever. We've seen some cracks now with if one of Brunson or Randall gets hurt, things get pretty rough for a couple games. We've seen it the last 2 games with Brunson hurt, even with Deuce McBride kind of stepping up. It's they desperately need someone that can back up Brunson and make it so that Deuce is backing up that person if
Right.
Brunson gets hurt or whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that's why they're in the market for Brogdon. Like it's really ironic because Gavin and I spent most of the last season kind of crapping on Brogdon and being like the unworthy 6-man winner. You know, it should have been Emmanuel Quickly, blah blah blah. But you know, they pretty much do very similar things. They come in off or at least in the role that the Knicks had Quickly, and obviously
similar flavors, I would say for sure. Yeah, they're not that similar players, but similar flavor for sure.
Exactly. Although one is like almost 10 years older than the other, that plays into it a little bit, as far as like what their value is or whatever. But like, I think that really they just need that creation off the bench. They really need like a third guy that can just like make make his own shot and make shots for others. Which Brogdon is talented at. He has the pull-up shooting. He has the ability to break down a defense and, initiate things more so than Deuce McBride. He's getting better at it, but I don't think he's going to get there at the level that the Knicks would need him to be at, to be just like the full-time backup guard or whatever, or particularly one that could potentially close games with Brunson and all that. So that's really why the Knicks are in on this. Like they need a guy like Brogdon. And Brogdon, I think from the Knicks perspective, there's two guys that they're pretty heavily linked to, and it's Brogdon and it's DeJounte Murray, who you mentioned already. And I think that Brogdon represents sort of the safer choice. And he's a guy that we've been talking about a lot lately, whereas Murray is more volatile, but a potentially higher upside swing, but also one that might cost a little more. So it's like,
right.
Are you willing to put a little more in to potentially get a little more out, but also potentially have it flame out horribly like it has in Atlanta? Because, people thought that would work out better. And there's all this data that says that he and Trae Young are worse. Like the team is worse with them both on the court than with either one of them off the court. And, Brunson, I think, is better than Trae Young, but I think that you run into some similar problems as far as like who Brunson's able to guard and stuff like that.
Even if he's not better, they're not so much different that it would be like a totally different experiment, like in the grand scheme.
Exactly.
You want Jalen Brunson to dribble and do stuff and be the engine. You don't want him to watch. If he watches, he's worse. I mean, that's just the truth of it.
Right. Exactly. So having gotten about a season with Brogdon so far, I'm going to throw this back to you as far as my little scouting expedition here. I have noticed that he has the lowest field goal percentage of his career so far this year, second worst true shooting percentage of his career so far. So I can think of explanations for this, given the situation that he's been thrust into. He went from a contender.
It's the simple one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he went from a contender on the Celtics last year to then getting traded to Portland and essentially being told, don't worry, dude, we'll find a new team for you at some point. Like, but for now, we're going to hold on to you because we can't do that right this second. But so do you kind of mark this up to like veteran kind of semi mailing it in on a bad team, doing just enough to like show that he still got it? Or do you think he legitimately looks like he's starting to lose a step? Because he is 31 years old at this point, history of injuries, all that good stuff. But I would just, without even hearing your answer, assume it's probably more of the former.
He just has bad coworkers. Like he plays on a team with like it's hard to run a pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton, who doesn't pop, doesn't roll hard to the rim, doesn't pass the ball well out of pick and rolls. It's hard to run a pick and roll when the spacers are Scoot Henderson, maybe the worst shooter in the league, but worst true shooting percentage of any player in the league. Scoot's going to be good, y'all, but he's bad right now. Toumani Camara, who's their starting small forward, he's a terrible spacer. It's just the offense is bad because they got bad players. They've been the worst offense in the league all year long, and Brogdon has felt that effect. Here's one for you though. Malcolm Brogdon on catch and shoot 3-pointers this year is shooting 52.8%. Play off the ball off of Jalen Brunson, and he makes more than half of his threes. That's on 3 attempts a game on catch and shoot threes. 52.8%. Like, drop him into a good ecosystem. And the Knicks are, if nothing else, Tom Thibodeau, in late career, Tom Thibodeau is a freaking good offensive coach who saw it coming. But like that thing whirs when the Knicks get going. Like that, they really can hum on offense with the amount of playmakers they have. And you just stick Malcolm Brogdon off the ball. Like you need him for the creation stuff, and he can do that. But you stick him as an off-ball guy watching Jew cook and watching Brunson cook, you're fine. Run handoffs with Hartenstein, you're fine. He's gonna be good. He can play on ball, he can play off the ball, he can create a little bit. He's best when you just say go score, like that's his best skill on offense. But if go score is stand there and be ready to shoot, he's going to make more than half of them.
Yeah, the Knicks love guys like that too, for what it's worth. I mean, Brunson is one of those guys. He's great on catch and shoot as well as creating his own shot. Brogdon would fit into that. DiVincenzo, even he does most of his work in catch and shoot, but he has the ability to pull up and shoot. Like, they love guys that can do exactly that. Deuce McBride, that's been one of the turning points for him in playing a lot better, is that he's finally unleashing and hitting the shots that he's taken, pull-ups, but also is great at just being able to find a good position on the perimeter. So that's very encouraging. I will say, I think that there would be some opportunity for Brogdon. He's going to come off the bench. He's probably going to spell Brunson first shift off the bench. But there would be a possibility for him to close some halves. Tibbs does tend to go hot hand late in games, other than like his two big stars. He likes to go hot hand and see who's playing well. And, oftentimes, sometimes he makes the wrong decision, but oftentimes he'll be smart enough to be like, hey, this guy's shooting really well, so let's keep him out there. That could mean that he could be sharing the court with Brunson sometimes. So I guess my other question is positionally, and I mean, I know you've only had half a season on a tanking team here, but what is his
just
defense?
Losing naturally? They'll tank later. Don't worry, they'll tank soon. Right now, they're just losing naturally.
Just losing natural losses. But what defensively do you like? I know he's he's only 6'4", but he's a built dude.
Yeah, he's big.
What has been his defensive role this year as far as like what positions he's been able to guard? Because I think more often than not on the Knicks, he would probably be guarding 2s and 3s. And I wonder if that would be an issue or not for him.
They typically do have him guard up, actually. They have him guard up because they let Toumani Camara guard the point of attack to guard like the little speedy ball handler types. So he'll guard wings. Even occasionally they've asked him to guard up a little bit on power forwards. Like he weirdly finished a game guarding Kevin Durant because they went small, and it was like, okay, you guard Kevin Durant. Now, that might be, I'll be honest with you, Alex, that just might be kind of how bad teams are, is that sometimes they won that game, by the way, but it's like they get to the end of the game and Malcolm Brogdon is their best option to guard Kevin Durant because it's just how it shakes out. But he's guarded Kawhi a little bit. Like he's not a lockdown defender by any means, but he's competent and competitive. There are times when he looks slow on defense for sure. And I think there's been times this year when maybe his body language has looked like I'm a hostage, but I think for the most part, he has been fine on defense. Like he's been fine on defense. I think he's not even arguably, I think he's probably been the Blazers' best defensive guard. It's not a lot of competition for that spot between Scoot Henderson and Anfernee Simons, but I think he's been their best defensive guard. And for the most part, I think he could guard 2s. Like in the league, shooting guards aren't scary. There's no scary shooting guards. That's where you hide people, and I think you could be fine hiding him right there.
Cool. Well, let's come back in just a sec, and we'll talk about a couple role players that I really dig, because I want to get into some guys that maybe, I don't know if this bargain bin shopping or whatever, but I want to just kind of throw some names out there and see what you think, because I got to see the Blazers in person the other week, and I was like, hey, a couple of these guys kind of popped. So I'll talk about that in just a second. Throw a couple more names at you.
Today's show is brought to you by our good friends at eBay Motors, who have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd, my man Joshy, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks all season long. So whether you're prepping for daily fantasy or you're scouring the waiver wire for a season-long team, every week right here, I'm going to bring you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. Let's see who Josh has picked out for this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Pick of the Week. It's Portland's own Jabari Walker. Josh notes that Jabari Walker slid into the starting lineup earlier this week as Chauncey Billups changed his starting pairing. Walker replaces Toumani Camara. He's starting next to Jeremy Grant. He's going to earn a big minute role. He's a pretty good rebounder. He's a bit of a flyer because I don't think the consistent offensive production will be there, and neither does Josh, an expert in these things. All things fantasy matters. But Walker has an opportunity, and there's a chance in the late season, as the Blazers kind of really lean into being young, there's a chance that Jabari is the guy that gets that opportunity. So rely on Josh. He's helped me be much more competitive in my fantasy leagues. A fantasy league, as soon as I started taking his advice seriously and following it closely, and Josh is going to help you win that fantasy championship. eBay Motors knows that a championship team is all about making sure each player is a perfect fit. And it's the same with your vehicle. So with over 122 million parts to choose from for your ride or die, you can make sure your ride runs smoothly with eBay Motors. Whether you need brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, it's guaranteed to fit the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, baby, not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. It's eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply.
All right, we're back in. And Mike, I got some other names to throw at you because, I don't know, trades, that happens sometimes. Sometimes, you make a trade for OG Anunoby and you get Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn back. And then you get to have mixed reactions about those two guys that were sort of throw-ins, and then you realize some of the limitations that kind of made them throw-ins. But anyway, one guy that I would love if the Blazers would be willing to throw in to this deal is Ibaka. I got to see him in person.
I love that when you said, "Hey, I want to do this show. I want to talk about Ibaka." Of all the names on the Blazers roster, you said, I want to make sure we get to, in the second segment, I want to make sure we get to Ibaka. I love it. Tell me, you saw him up close at MSG. You told me you had nice tickets. Tell me about the Baji experience you had.
Dude, he popped in that game. And I mean, I don't even know what his final stats were, but I think he blocked Randall like 4 times. Like, me and my friend were literally just sitting there being like, this dude is the Randall stopper. Like, if he could stop Randall this many times, like, just get him on my team. Like, because Randall was playing really good at that point. Like, he was on a real heater. And Baji just, like, ate his lunch over and over. And it was kind of hilarious. But also made me go, like, if the Knicks end up dealing for Malcolm Brogdon and they can get this dude as, like, a throw-in more or less, because he's on a 2-way deal, right?
He's a 2-way guy. Yeah, he's a rookie. He was on a 2-way last year, but he never appeared. He did not make his NBA debut. He had a back injury that kept him out most of last season. And then the Blazers didn't sign him to a 2-way coming out of camp. They went another direction. He came back when they made some roster moves. And so he's back. And now, because of injuries to Rob Williams and DeAndre Ayton, he's like their regular backup center. He's 21. He started playing basketball at about 15. He's the first player to make it from the NBA Africa program to the league. Like, he's a really fun story. He played at Barcelona's like B team is where he first got his start out of Senegal. And he pops on defense. He definitely brings energy on defense. He is a rough on offense. Okay, that game though against the Knicks, he finished with 4 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. He was all over the place.
So you can see why he popped, right?
Yeah. This is, according to Basketball Reference game score, that is the second best game of Ivu Baji's career. So you literally saw one of the great Baji experiences that you possibly could have. Yeah, I don't know that he could play big minutes in a high leverage game, but I think he's more valuable on the Blazers, where they can like let him kind of run free and lose by 28 to the Knicks and appeal to people, appeal to fans in the arena. But where do you see him fitting necessarily?
Well, so let me paint the picture for you. So I looked at his stats. So I looked at his stats: 2 points, 4 boards, 1.5 blocks, 3 fouls in 15 minutes per game.
Yeah, he fouls.
Truly impressive foul rate. But honestly, that's about all I would envision him potentially playing for the Knicks at max would be 15 minutes. And so if he could provide those numbers in 15 minutes, I think it would be solid, because basically all that the Knicks need him to do, Tibbs has more or less said Isaiah Hartenstein is going to play an obscene amount of minutes.
Yes, he is,
for the rest of the season until Mitchell Robinson comes back, which hopefully will be a few weeks before the postseason. If we're
not
lucky.
June, apparently.
Not June. I guess I don't know why a team would just be like, let us just send some medical records to the league and see if they approve this thing. At which point we would have to shut down a guy for the season that maybe could come back by the playoffs. And
who's great, by the way.
Who's amazing. Mitchell Robinson's
he's great.
They just like wanted to fearmonger clearly and just like get the bloggers and the podcasters going crazy for a little bit, which they did. We freaked out. But anyway, I basically just need a dude that can fill in like 13 minutes behind Isaiah Hartenstein. He could foul as much as he wants, mostly.
He can. You could foul out in 13 minutes. It doesn't matter. I agree. There's no such thing as foul trouble if you're a low minute player.
Because Hartenstein, like, has really reeled his own foul troubles in, and maybe could give Baji some good advice. I don't know. But really, I think that he just does a lot of what Tibbs would want out of that spot. And as much as I hate to plan things around Tibbs, this is a very low cost investment in a player that could just give you a serviceable amount of minutes until Mitchell Robinson comes back, and give you a player that's just honestly more akin to what Tibbs wants. Because I just don't think Precious Achiuwa is that dude. Tibbs is so reluctant to play him, like as little as he possibly can. He puts Precious on the court because he's just like, well, you're not big enough and you can't rebound as well, which is false, by the way. He rebounds great, but he doesn't rim protect, which I think is the big thing that Tibbs doesn't really like. But I don't know. That would be one of those things where I would just be like, well, okay, we'll throw in an extra second round pick if you're willing to swap two-way players with
I was going to say, like, two-way guys don't really get traded. It's pretty rare. They don't count as salary or against the cap or whatever. So it's a strange, I don't know how to value Ibaka in a trade. I would say, yeah, I'd like, what is your sexiest future second round pick you can offer? Let's go with that or something like that. But I don't have a good baseline for what do intriguing but raw two-way guys go for? Like, I don't know. I'll just say, like, when we get to the part where we're actually making trades, now that I know you love them, I will really hold your feet to the fire. That's going to be at least an extra first minimum.
This is going to be the Melo trade all over again. This is going to be you making me put Mozgov in the deal, man.
Exactly. Mozgov's a deal breaker. If it's not Timofey, it's not getting done. They should have waited. It's one. I'm still sad about it. I'm curious what happened to Quentin Grimes. Why has he fallen out of favor, it appears?
So, all right. So the beginning of the year, he was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so he rightfully got demoted because Dante DiVincenzo was playing really well off the bench, and nobody had any issues with that because it was just like Grimes needs to figure something out here. Like, just his confidence was shot. He made a comment to the media being like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I feel like I'm not involved in the offense. I feel like I just stand around and wait for the ball that never comes to take shots, whatever. And he just in general did not seem super happy with what was going on. That said, I could not blame his teammates for not passing him the ball in the starting lineup because he was just woeful shooting the ball to start the year. Is really terrible. I forget what the percentage was, but he's shooting like in the 20s, which is terrible for a dude that looked like he could be shooting in the 40s for his career. Then he goes to the bench and he's actually been sort of putting things together again. Now we're to the point where the things have flipped. And now Gavin and I, in our most recent show, we're like, this dude needs to play more. Like, why are you playing Josh Hart at the 2 when you have a Quentin Grimes sitting right there shooting 3 of 4 from 3 in this game? And you're limiting him to 16 minutes. The big thing that came out today that sort of, I think Gavin and I are going to cover a little more in another show, but news that came out today is that Quentin Grimes is apparently being shot pretty heavily by the Knicks now. So my tinfoil hat theory is that at this moment he's playing better, which they're using to sell him to other teams potentially for a deal.
I thought he was great last year. Like, I thought he was going to be a really good role player. The defense, the defense, the shooting, just like, he like the sort of just the feel on both ends. Like I was a big Quentin Grimes believer, and then all of a sudden it's like he's out of it, and he's not. I mean, when you get Big Ragu and Josh Hart, like Josh Hart is the most Tibbs player imaginable, so he's obviously going to play more than Grimes because he's like quintessential grown in a lab Tibbs guy. But yeah, if I were picking like, hey, which Knicks role player would I like thrown in this deal along with the salary of a certain Frenchman, give me Q. I would love Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, I mean the whole difficulty there becomes I hope that he's not treated as a throw-in because that would suck. Like this is a guy that on one leg shut down Jimmy Butler in the playoffs last year, and suddenly that's just kind of gone out the window in favor of I don't know. Tibbs doesn't like him or something, so they're willing to just.
Well, you know what? Move west, young man. Move west, young man.
I'm sure that he would like being somewhere where he could get tons of playing time and probably lots of shots because, like you said, the Blazers have a shooting problem, and he's got a shooting solution right there in his right arm. So. I don't know. But you know what? I think we've reached the logical point where it's time to start.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's negotiate some trades.
Yeah, so let's take our last little break here, and then we'll come back in. We'll talk through some deals and mock GM this thing up.
Today's show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. It's a fun way to get involved in daily fantasy sports, whatever it is you're looking for. They have it like the NBA or the NHL or the NFL. And how it works is you pick an entry between 2 and 6 players on each one of your entries. And all you're doing is picking more or less than the stat projections set by PrizePicks. No field, no sharks, just you versus those numbers. So if you're like me and you play the NBA, then it's things like points, rebounds, assists, and steals, and you say more or less than the stat projection set by PrizePicks, and then you win your money. And right now, if you're a first-time user, you can get up to $100 in a first deposit match when you visit PrizePicks.com and use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Go to PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. They'll match you dollar for dollar on your first deposit up to $100. So whatever you're feeling comfortable putting in the first time, they'll match you dollar for dollar up to that $100 mark. It's PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy.
All right, we're back in. It's time for the mock trades. And I didn't even get to talk about Matisse Thybulle yet, but maybe I'll try and sneak him in here. But
yeah, the money's going to be hard to make Thybulle work, but he would be valuable for the Knicks. He's such a good defensive playmaker. He's such a good defensive playmaker.
I love that dude. I've loved him since college. I understand he has some issues like shooting the ball, but
he's been really good shooting the ball. Really good shooting the ball in a Portland Trailblazers jersey. Whether he can shoot a ball in another jersey, we'll see. But with the Blazers, he shot it well.
He's got the same thing going on that Hart had going on there. What is it about the Blazers that turns guys that have been good defensive players and middling shooters for their whole career into Ray Allen on the Blazers, and then they go to another team and they shoot their normal percentage again?
Well, the second half season, the first half season of Josh Hart, he was magic. The second half season prior to the Knicks, he struggled a little bit
before last year.
But in 22 games last year, Thybulle shot 39% from three. In 37 games this year, 37% from three with the Blazers. He's shooting across 59 games, 37.8% from threes, an above average shooter on almost 4 attempts a game. Like he could shoot. He doesn't do a lot else on offense, but he's such a good defensive playmaker that if you're above average 3-point shooter, you're a player. Like you can help almost any team. If the Knicks had one more mid-range salary to make the money work, I think you ask for Thybulle and you throw in extra picks and make it happen. But I don't know that they do. They just need Precious Achiuwa. He just needs to make $8 million, not $4. That's the trick here. So I think we know the framework of the deal, right? Yeah. It's Malcolm Brogdon for Evan Fournier. That money works like that. You can just make that deal, no problem. The question is like, what the Knicks have picks to give up, right? They have several first rounders. My issue, if I'm the Blazers, and I guess I am for the purposes of this exercise, the Knicks have 24 first round picks. Is that right?
Sort of. Not really,
because they're protected.
Let me give you the quick Cliff Notes on those picks.
Okay, yeah.
The Knicks have 8 first round picks they can trade. They have 4 all of their swaps available, so I think 4 swaps as well. So they could potentially do up to 12 picks and swaps in any given deal. They have all their own first round picks going forward. They also have Milwaukee's pick in 25, which is top 3 or 4, top 4 protected. If it falls within the top 4, I think New Orleans gets it, which it won't. So the Knicks will get it. So that's basically a guarantee. And then they have the Dallas pick this year, which is top 10 protected, and then top 10 protected once more next year if it somehow doesn't convey again, if everything goes to hell and they tank again blatantly this year and don't get punished nearly enough by the league like last year.
Tanking's cool. I have no problem with tanking. Losing on purpose is actually what smart, well-run franchises do.
That's true.
But
that is true.
In any case,
the Knicks never did enough of it, which is why they had to get really lucky in free agency. But anyway, so they have that pick, which is almost guaranteed to convey this year. And then the other 2 picks, they have one from Washington and one from Detroit. The Detroit one will not convey sooner than like 2026 because that thing is protected top 18 this year, I think, and then top 14 next year, and then like top 10 the year after that, and I think it's top 8 the year after that. That's the earliest I could possibly see that pick conveying, just with the state of things there right now. Washington picks similar, although not quite as bad. I think it's lotto protected this year, top 10 next year, and then like top 6 or something, or top 7, something along those lines. And then I think after that point, the Washington one turns into 2 second round picks, and the Detroit one turns into 1 second round pick, or maybe I'm flip flopping those. But either way, they're pretty well protected and probably won't convey for at least 2 more years.
Right, because those teams are truly bad.
Truly bad. They would need a lot to turn around for them.
I didn't realize the Detroit pick is that, I think it's the Jalen Duren trade. So they're maybe not even going to end up getting. They'll be bad enough to never actually trade that pick for Duren. So they don't really have multiple picks, or they don't have 4 picks in 2024, because they're not going to end up with those.
Definitely not. They have 2 picks.
But they could trade the rights to future picks in 2026 from bad teams, which I think appeals to me more than the Blazers have their own pick, which is going to be good. Right now it's the fifth. They have the fifth worst record in the league. So, and they have the Warriors pick, and the Warriors are famously in great shape and not totally on fire right now. They have the 10th worst record in the league. So like the Blazers might have 2 top 10 picks, might have 2 lottery picks. Like I don't think in this draft you want to load up on like how many top 17 picks can we possibly get. I think the value for the Blazers would be a future shitty pick. Like, what's the worst team? So that's why I'm saying, like, maybe the Blazers ask for that Washington pick. They say, okay, give us the Wizards pick, because maybe it won't convey for 2 years, but we think the Wizards are going to be, the 11th best team when it's top 10 protected, or 11th worst team when it's top 10 protected in 3 years, and we're comfortable with it. Are there any picks that you wouldn't put on the table, or would you want to be protected more? Or is that totally cool with you?
I would maybe say, like, I mean, just for the nature of the NBA, where everything turns over every 2 years and you never know what things are going to be. If you were like, hey, I want the Knicks like 2028 pick unprotected, I'd be like, let's maybe
right. Yeah.
Maybe instead. How's that? Because I know what's going to happen this year. I don't know what's going to happen in 2028, and I'm not desperate like the Lakers or something where I have to trade that. So that would probably be my only thing. But if it came down to like that Washington or Detroit pick, I'm all about that, honestly, because I think that you're right. I do think that benefits a team like the Blazers more, where hopefully if things go right in 2 years or so, you'll be looking at saying, okay, now it's time to load up on the role players, because hopefully we've hit on the draft a couple times and like have that core. Scoot Henderson is developing, like all these guys are kind of figuring their stuff out. And now we're trying to just hit on those role players so then we can, see it up, and like,
exactly. And you pick in the teens, exactly, less pressure and all that stuff.
Sure.
It's guys are cheaper, all those things. Yeah. So I think it would be centered around that pick and Fournier.
Sure.
The question is, like, would you throw in Quentin Grimes if you're the Knicks, or would you want something back?
I think that based off how the Knicks are operating right now, and this is based off the OG trade, I think that they would treat Grimes like a pick. So if your offer that you come to the Knicks with is, hey, Team X is offering us, salary plus a first round pick for Malcolm Brogdon. So we'll instead, but maybe the salary is like a 2-year salary or something. So like, oh, we'd like it better if it expires. So you get, Fournier is a great option for that, for a team that wants to just, avoid any salary tax implications and just clear a bunch of salary and just run with some young dudes.
Right.
So, the Knicks could then say, okay, well, you can have that Washington pick or whatever it is. That makes you happy. Cool. And very similar to the Josh Hart deal last year then, where it's just like,
right.
You traded Reddish, who's not turned into much since then. And, that was pretty much it. It was like that and the first round pick, and that's it. The thing that would make Grimes potentially be in the deal would be if there was credible other teams being like, we'll give you 2 first round picks. And then the Knicks, I think, maybe then would be inclined to say, because they're still keeping all this powder dry, because they're still, Brogdon might even be involved in this. They're still keeping their mind open to like a Joel Embiid trade or something. Like if things hit the fan in Philly at the end of this year.
Brogdon is helpful for that, if nothing else. He makes $22 million next season. Like, it'll be valuable to have that big salary slot.
Or he would be a huge, great sell to, for example, Cleveland, who if Donovan Mitchell says, hey, I want to go to New York.
So well right now.
Yeah. Like he's playing so well, they're playing well,
Yeah.
so but that's the whole point. Like they have a
Right.
young core that's already playoff ready. So they would be like, we don't want to like blow this up. Like, we would like to get a player back. Then the Knicks would, be like, oh, well, here's Brogdon or here's
Yeah.
DeJounte Murray or whoever. Like you guys could still be
And,
competitive.
yeah.
We just need better
And
play.
like Fournier, you need the money. You need the money to make it work.
Right.
And having $22 million in tradable salary has some
It's
real
nice.
value there.
So
Yeah. So I wouldn't quibble over if there was no Grimes. Like I would
so
want
essentially what it would come down to anyway, sorry, I got
Yeah.
to rail. Sorry.
Yeah.
So basically what it would come down to is like what the OG trade taught me is that they gave the Pistons second round pick this year, which I guess is sort of like a late first round pick if you want to look
Right.
at it that way. Although I don't, because you get a lot less locked in
Team
time with
control.
that
Yeah. You
player
end
and
up
all that
losing
stuff.
Jalen Brunson to the Knicks. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I think that they got out of that deal giving up so little draft capital when, like, allegedly Toronto was looking for like 2-3 first round picks for OG. They got out of it for 0 first round picks. I think that the reason that happened is because they valued quickly as like a first round pick or 2
Right.
and used him in that deal instead. I think that's what they're doing with Grimes now. So I think what would happen is if Portland came to them and said, well, Team X is offering us 2 first round picks, but instead, like if the Knicks were then like, well, we don't want to trade the first because we want to save those for the star trade, we'll give you Grimes instead. And then Portland was on board with that because they're like, well, we want to get some talent in here right now and get them starting to play together and gel together and stuff. Then I think the Knicks would maybe do that. But it would take another team.
Yeah, and I don't think you're gonna get 2 picks for Brogdon. So I think what it's probably, I think the most likely, and why I don't love the Knicks as a trade partner is because the most likely deal is the obvious one. It's Fournier and a pick. And while that's fine and reasonable return, like the Josh Hart return is a pretty reasonable return for what Malcolm Brogdon is, right? Like he's a good, solid rotation NBA player who's going to help a good team win, just like Josh Hart is. But like, if I'm the Blazers, I want Quentin Grimes. I want a young something to make it work. So while I think this trade is very realistic, and I think this might even be how it could end up going down this way, if I'm in charge, that's like what I would be, I don't know, demanding. I would be requesting, say, hey, kick in Quentin Grimes. We'll throw you a future second round pick for your troubles that you can trade down the line. And because that's what we actually want. We actually want a player, a young player that is under team control that we can move forward with, who at least this fake GM values pretty highly.
Yeah. I guess the only thing from the Blazers perspective that maybe would like make Grimes slightly less appealing is you do have to make a decision about paying him pretty soon. Like he actually, it's crazy. Like he doesn't feel like he's been in the league this long, but this is his 3rd year. So this,
you have to pay him next summer, right? Yeah.
If you choose to, or you could do what the Knicks just did with quickly and just be like, oh, forget it. We'll figure it out later. You can have restricted free agency, and or we're just going to trade you. So yeah, that's the only thing. Like, but I think that if it came down to that, if I were Leon Rose and like Portland was coming to me and saying, well, we only have deals for one first round pick on the table, then Rose is gonna be like, okay, we can get 1 first round pick from us then. Like, congrats. That's it. We don't really have anyone that's like a throw-in young player. Maybe I could be convinced to be like Jericho Sims. Okay. I mean,
that's what I was thinking. Like Jericho or Precious, and Precious is probably not that appealing to me. I don't think he has a ton of upside. He's fine, totally fine player, terrible hands. If he could catch, he'd be a different basketball player. And Sims, I don't rate very highly. So I think the easiest way to get this done is to keep Grimes out of it and say Fournier and the Wizards pick and wash our hands of this. Even though, like, again, for my listeners, I'm not super excited about this deal, but if we have to agree on something, I think this is the way we agree on it. I would be shopping though. I'd be hitting the phones shopping after talking to the Knicks.
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. I mean, I would too, and I'm sure that Portland is going to. But maybe the past dealings will ultimately be enough to kind of convince these guys to just deal with each other again. But
exactly,
either way, I think we found the answer here, which is basically it'll be the easy choice here. Last thing that I'll close on: if you were going to pick on a scale 1 to 10, how likely you think it is that the Knicks and Blazers do business during this this trade season? What do you think the odds
are? 6.5.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty high. I have fairly high level of confidence, but not. I wouldn't put it at a lock because I think Brogdon has enough interest around the league that he could go that they could talk to several teams.
I'm at about a 6 because I think that whether the fans like it or not, I think that Brogdon would be the backup plan for the Knicks, and I just have this feeling that they're going after DeJounte Murray and that Grimes is probably involved in that, and that's why all of a sudden we're seeing a report today about the Knicks are shopping Grimes. Oh, wait, didn't Atlanta have interest in Grimes last year? Like put the dots together there. I think that's the direction they're trying to go, but
thanks again to Alex for joining me on the program. A fun discussion of Malcolm Brogdon, the Knicks, and all things trade season. The Blazers play the Indiana Pacers tonight in Portland. The kickoff road trip Sunday against the Los Angeles Lakers. That will be game 42 of the season, meaning the next time you hear my voice, we'll be officially past the halfway point and into the second half of the Blazers schedule. So Monday's show come out Monday in your video feeds, on late Sunday night in the audio feeds, if that's where you catch me. We will recap both those games against the Pacers and the Lakers, and then we will do a mid-season check-in of sorts. Don't miss it. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.